tore through the air, a sound designed to break a man's spirit long before the shrapnel ever reached him. It was psychological warfare at its most raw, a symphony of destruction that frayed the nerves of even the most hardened veterans. For Barden, a machine gunner, his entire world was distilled down to the two sturdy legs of his M1919 Browning. The bipod was his anchor in this sea of mud and fear. It was the only solid thing in a world that constantly threatened to dissolve into chaos. His universe was the steel of his weapon, the worn wooden grips, and the heavy belt of .30 caliber ammunition that fed it. A Browning was more than just a gun. It was an extension of himself, his shield, and his sword. It was his job to lay down a curtain of fire, to suppress the enemy, to protect his comrades. He was the linchpin of his platoon's defense, the one who held the line when everything else gave way. His position was a carefully dug-in emplacement, reinforced with sandbags and scavenged timbers. It offered a commanding view of the bleak no-man's land. From this small fortress of earth and canvas, Barden and his assistant gunners scanned the opposite side, watching for any sign of movement, any flicker of activity that might signal an attack. They were hunters, patiently waiting. Their days were a monotonous cycle of watchfulness, punctuated by the sudden, heart-stopping terror of an artillery strike. You'd be cleaning the gun, sharing a cold ration, or reading a letter from home, and then the whistle would start, growing louder and closer until the world exploded around you. The ground would shake violently, and dirt and debris would rain down, forcing them to cower in their foxholes, praying the next shell wouldn't find them. After the barrage lifted, a deafening silence would fall, broken only by the ringing in their ears and the distant cries of the wounded. Then slowly life would resume. They would emerge, check on each other, and begin the painstaking process of repairing their damaged defenses. It was a grim routine, a testament to human resilience in the face of relentless destruction. Barden's world revolved around the mechanics of his weapon. He knew its every quirk, every sound. The satisfying clank of the charging handle, the smooth pull of the bolt, the distinct rhythm of its firing, these were the sounds of his survival. He could break it down and reassemble it blindfolded, a skill honed through endless hours of practice. Keeping the M1919 in perfect working order was not just a duty. It was an obsession. A jam or a stoppage at the wrong moment could mean death, not just for him, but for everyone who depended on him. His relationship with his assistant gunner, a young man from Ohio named Miller, was forged in this crucible of shared danger. They didn't need many words. A nod, a glance, a gesture was often enough. Miller carried the extra barrels and the heavy ammunition boxes, his body aching under the weight. He was the one who fed the ammo belt into the receiver, ensuring a steady, uninterrupted stream of fire. They were a team, a two-man engine of war, their movements synchronized by instinct and experience. They shared everything, their meager rations, their letters from home, their deepest fears spoken only in the dead of night. One cold, misty morning, the routine was broken. The usual pre-dawn artillery barrage was heavier, more concentrated. The screaming Nebelwerfers seemed to tear the sky apart. As the shelling finally ceased, an eerie silence descended, thicker and more menacing than usual. Barden gripped the handles of his Browning, his knuckles white. He and Miller scanned the horizon, their eyes straining through the lingering smoke and mist. And then they saw it. Figures, ghost-like in the dawnlight, emerging from the enemy trenches. Dozens of them, then hundreds, advancing across the cratered fields. It was the attack they had been waiting for, the moment all their training and waiting had been for. Barden's heart pounded against his ribs, but his hands were steady. He took a deep breath, centered himself, and sighted down the barrel. Miller was already in position, the first belt of ammunition ready. The German infantry advanced in waves, using the shell craters for cover, moving with a disciplined, chilling efficiency. They were still out of effective range, a crawling mass of field gray against the brown earth. But he had to wait. Wait for the order. Wait for them to get closer. The lieutenant's whistle pierced the air, sharp and clear. "Fire!" Barden squeezed the trigger. The M1919 roared to life, bucking against his shoulder. The world narrowed to the stream of tracer rounds arcing across the field, a red line connecting him to the enemy. He wasn't firing at men anymore. He was firing at targets, at a threat that had to be stopped. He swept the gun back and forth in short, controlled bursts, aiming for clusters of advancing soldiers, forcing them to go to ground. Miller was a machine, feeding the belt smoothly, tapping Barden on the shoulder when it was time to change the glowing hot barrel. The air filled